candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Avag Beck's podcast.
I love that you said that about the universe, because that helped in me writing, okay? So like the story is flowing, not yet flowing, but it's nagging, right? The little snippets. And I would walk into Hobby Lobby and there would be a sign that said, write the book. And I'm like, what? Okay. And then I swear the universe was putting things out there for me to say, I think, yes, I need to do this. And I believe like every morning I take my cup of coffee and I sit out my screened in patio in the back. I'm a smoker, admittedly. So I have my cigarette in the morning and my cup of coffee, and I kind of put out my affirmation or my manifestation. I'm wearing my amulets and I ask the universe for certain things. And actually, the number one thing is that my books take off. And I am also looking, because I did write songs, that I need somebody who writes music. I have a lot of bands that I listen to today, and I actually named those bands in one of my TikTok reels. And I'm like, guys, I know you don't need me because they write phenomenal rock songs anyway, but I'd like to collab with any one of you. I think I wrote about 16 songs that go through the books. It's all the way to book 5, 6, whatever.
Sting is one.
There's one love song, and that's an important song throughout the books. And then there's some other songs that are not meant to be. Like when I wrote this song, envisioned this type of music. Can I write it? No, I don't write music. I can write lyrics and I can tell you, this is the way I hear this song being. Write it, because I can't write it, guys. You're all excellent. You're all well-known musicians. And I know that there are some people in bands that collab with other artists. And, I'm a nobody. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
But so here's the thing, like there's 2 things happening at once. Well, 3 things. Me getting the books out there, down the road, if somebody is interested to pick it up. And it would be, the sexy scenes are going to be interesting, how they do that. But
do you remember a book that took the world by storm, 50 Shades of Grey?
I did not read it.
Okay. But it
yes.
took the world, they did what they needed to do with the movie, right? The series came out, the first series, I think it went up to 4 or 5. Was it? I don't remember. But 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, whatever. That is for you not to worry about. You focus on your genius, Beth. We need you to, however raw, however it comes out, we need it in writing, right?
You're going to get it. You're going to get it. You're going to get it.
The rest we'll figure it out. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, because the 2 main characters are just they're very much in love and very hot for each other. And they go through 20 years together being exactly that, because they are now in a band together, and she's the selling point, because she's very sexy on stage and she does have a daughter. I guess I put a little bit of one of my girls in there, because she's very sexy on stage, and her daughter is like, why do you have to be those people? She said, why are you selling sex on stage? And she's like, well, we're not porno stars, but we just love each other. And, this is what we've been doing for the last 20 years and we're not going to change. And her daughter doesn't like it. And I guess maybe I interjected a little bit of my own daughters in that, because they would feel the same way if they saw me doing some of the things that the 2 of them do to get together on stage. It's just, they show their love, and she gets a little sexy on stage, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Unless your kid sees it, and if your kid is still kind of like very impressionable. Kids get bullied. Kids are protective of their parents, especially a mother. So I
Well,
can see where that conflict comes in.
everybody thinks, your mom is so sexy and
Yeah.
hot and she's just
Who
like,
doesn't like that is embarrassing.
yeah. So, and that's kind of, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like what happened with me and my daughters when, I was a single mother. And when I took them to see the Korn concert, I was wearing this mini leather thing, and some of the people as we were leaving were making remarks, and they were like, "Why do you have to look like that, Mom? Why?" And I was like, I said, "Don't pay attention to that. Just, don't listen." And they were just like, "Why do you have to look like that, Mom?" And so I am getting that again. When I went to Portland, I did the Portland Book Festival, and I stay with my other daughter who lives there, and I have this red coat, and it's a statement kind of coat. So I was wearing that, and now the blonde hair and everything. And every time we went someplace, somebody would say, "I love this, the red coat, the hair." And I could see my daughter just going. And so it happened every time we went out.
Yeah.
And she was just like, "I can't take it." So then we went to my other daughter's house because now my granddaughter is born. And my daughter's like, "What, Mom, why do you have to?" And my other daughter said, "Stop, don't." She goes, "Everybody loves it, okay? We go out and everybody's coming up to Mom saying this stuff." And they were like, and they're like, "Well, don't say anything anymore because people love the way she looks. We can't say anything anymore." And I was like, "Well, that's too bad. That's too bad."
It's refreshing to see you reinvent yourself and owning it.
Yeah. I mean,
Because
you have to.
we women are not known to completely do that very easily because of societal ideation. So it tickles me that, you're not only embarking boldly on this journey of authorship, you've changed you're owning yourself. You're owning the hair, the clothing, your appearance. It is you and you're comfortable in that. And that is a beautiful thing to see. So, going back to your book and, the characters and how you kind of like injected your own life into it. And when you came to a band early in the interview, you did say, you always wanted to be in a band, but, there was a lot of like kind of like self-doubt. Am I good enough? Am I pretty enough? Can I get a following? And things of that nature. Was there any time in your life that you started a band or you were part of a band or, you were close to being in a band? Because from what you said, the club scenes and, the concert and everything was very much part of you growing up.
Yes. I would say the closest that I got, and I dated musicians. I was friends. I mean, there was a band.
This one?
Some went on to do other things, but
Okay.
there was a band circuit, and there was one guy who basically you had to go to him to get booked into clubs in Long Island. Notice I say Long Island, one word, New York, because that's the way we talk. Connecticut, New Jersey, not so much New York City, because like New York City had like my father's place and the Peppermint Lounge. Those were CBGBs. Those were something different. But this one guy had all the clubs and you had to go to him. And so everybody was in his world. And there was every kind of band. There was guys who dressed up looking like chicks. There was the Southern rock. There was the progressive rock. And that's how I got in. Was I started dating a guy and I was underage, I think I was 16. And he was a roadie for the premier band on the circuit. Everybody loved them. And they played like Zeppelin and Jethro Tull, and they were progressive, but they packed any place they went to. Okay. So he would always leave my name at the door and I would always get in, And there was a place in New Rochelle called, and it's still, Glen Island Casino used to be Tommy Dorsey and whatever. But Tuesday nights in the summer, it had 3 bands because there was a small thing downstairs and 2 main stages. And I started dating a guy from another band, but the guys that were in the top band were actually my friends. And 2 of them, who are no longer here, unfortunately, they got to meet my daughters. They would so it was like all these years, they were still my friends. And that introduces you to other bands. And then I started living with somebody from another band. And so you meet more people, you meet other musicians in other bands, or you meet their girlfriends, which the girlfriend thing is a big deal. I mean, if you're the girlfriend of somebody in a band, it's like, don't mess with us. Guys don't mess with us. And I put it in the books, and that's the way we acted. But there was one band that came out of that circuit. And I think I can say it, because if Dee Snider ever came after me, Twisted Sister was the band that came out of that circuit. And and my boyfriend's band, and in the summers, sometimes, like if it was Memorial Day weekend or 4th of July weekend, they would put 2 bands in a club, and Twisted Sister and my boyfriend's band, they would always be, and it would be like mass, you couldn't walk. Like we sat at a table, and, the Twisted Sister girls sat at a table, and you didn't leave because there was nowhere to walk. And they packed the clubs. And the band that I said I was friends with, one of those guys in that band went to play with a member of The who started his own band, and he went to play with him. So some people left their bands, and there was a lot of that. Or there would be, what happened with the guy that I was with is that some guy came, he thought he was a wise guy, but I was like, yeah, you don't know about being a wise guy, dude, but all right. And he was like, I'm going to manage you. And so it was like, and I got money, and I'm going to outfit you. He went and had them all get clothes. And back then, getting recording time was very hard, especially, an unknown band. And they did have a couple of original songs. And that's why my friends who were in the premier band, I mean, everybody knew them. And, the rock stations would say, hey, on, Friday night, it's going to be X band, and the rock stations promoted the bands depending on who they were. And they were phenomenal musicians. I mean, the guitarist, I think, hung out with Jimmy Page, my friend who was the keyboard player. I loved him to death, and my girls loved him. I mean, he could play anything. He had listened to it once, but he could play anything class. If you name it, he could play it, but they didn't have original music. That's what happened, is that they wanted you to have a couple of original songs. And today they're called cover bands, like it's a Queen cover band, or it's this Led Zeppelin cover band. So you go in there knowing, okay, that's what they do. But a cover band is always going to just be a cover band. And I have friends who to this day are still doing cover band work, and they're not paying into Social Security. They get paid by cash. And I know one friend, I kind of dated him, well, it wasn't really, but, sometimes he's in dire straits because I would say, why don't you get Social Security? And he's like, he never paid into it. So I think he has a part-time gig now, but, some of those guys really, now that they're in their 60s, what are they doing? And it's kind of sad to see, but Twisted Sister did come out. And I do have a story about that.
Twisted Sister, they had original songs. They were not just a cover band.
Right. When they were in the club circuit,
They were a cover.
they were cover band. They totally were cover. And so it's funny. I told my daughters a story, and Dee Snider had a short-lived reality show. And the story that I told, and I know that Suzette told it, so I feel like I can say it. So the band, the road crew sets up the stage, right? And so you get there early to do a sound check. So around, you might not be going on till 8, 9 o'clock, but you're there at 6 and, you're grabbing something to eat and you're at the club and the club is there and, whatever, the bouncers, the waitresses, blah, blah, blah. And you're hanging out. So D and JJ and all them come in, and so there's a big deal at the door, and I can see the bouncer to this day. He was a big guy. Dee's girlfriend at the time was underage, and the bouncer knew it, and he wouldn't let her in. He said, "Sorry, you can't come in. You're not 18. You can't come in." And that was like a major shitstorm because they said, he's like, "Well, if you don't let her in, we're not going to play." And it was like back and forth. Well, you got to let her in or I'm not playing. And so the owner of the club had to, and he was there, but it was like, and so all of us from my boyfriend, we're sitting there going, wow, this is entertaining as shit. We're just loving every minute of it. And, of course, they eventually let her in. So I told my daughters that story. And so one of the first episodes of the reality was Suzette talking about that. And my daughters came running in and they said, "Oh my God, Mom, that really happened." And I said, "Why would I make that up?" I mean, I'm not a Twisted Sister fan, but
You grew up with them. How come you're not a fan?
I guess because I knew them in a different sense, that it was like my boyfriend at the time, their band, although they did play some other stuff, they basically play the same type of music, except they weren't dressing crazy like, they were.
Okay, so Twisted Sister, they still kind of do, but not as much. They were really like almost feminine in the dressing, with
Yes,
the lipstick
absolutely.
and everything, the hair.
Absolutely.
Right. So that was their mark. I mean, the name, Twisted Sisters, right? They're your sisters. They're dressed like your sisters, but twisted, right? But they're here to rock your socks off, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. So that was the whole thing, is that they had the gimmick and other bands didn't have the gimmick. Although my ex-boyfriend's band, they got studio time and they, whatever. And then what happened, and this happens, I watched it happen a lot, is that you go into the studio, you're a band, and then they tell you, okay, the bass player, the drummer, and the rhythm guitarist are out. And it's like, wait, what? But so when they do that, the band is not the same band that it's changed. You change one component in something, and then it doesn't work the way it was supposed to. And that happened a lot. And that's what broke up bands. Or somebody like in Twisted Sister, he became the personality of that band.
Was he not always the lead singer, though?
He was. AJ French and him, I think, started the band together. And so I think, because I actually saw it on, D used to do the show, and I forget what channel it was on, the breakup of the band. And he did Twisted Sister. And I think he got popular because he was the lead singer. And it happens with a lot of lead singers. They become the face of the band, and either the band is okay with it. It's like, yeah, it's cool. Let him be the front man. But sometimes, okay, like what happened in Twisted Sister, Dee became popular as his own person. And so that causes friction. So that's the kind of stuff that break bands up. I mean, the Police were well known that the three of them disliked each other, but they would record, or then we got to the point where you could record your tracks and then the other people come in, and, that happened. And the Who, I mean, Daltrey and Townsend didn't always get along. And so there is friction when, especially when somebody pops out as the face of the band. And the other people are like,
usually it's not the person's doing. I think that comes from like fan base. Even, even with like the modern day pop, right? So you look at a band like NSYNC, right?
mm-hmm.
You have the JC, and then you have JT, which was Timberlake, right? You have Fatone, and please God forgive me. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the other person's name. But what I'm saying is, the people that fans naturally gravitate to, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's not even the leader.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be a look, right? In that band, I was just having this conversation with my physical therapist last week. She was telling a story how she won a phone competition and she ended up at TRL. And it so happened that NSYNC was there. They had a lunch and everything. And she vividly remembers that she went there for JC, not JT. But Justin Timberlake was the person that the girls were fanning over. But that's not who she was excited to see. So that naturally happens I think in any group, especially in entertainment. So that's like jealousy within the group.
But I will tell you that there's a couple of bands and one band in particular that I'm a huge fan, and I am probably going to go see them. I'm not telling my husband, but there's a couple of bands out now that like Theory of Dead Man, Seether, Shinedown, and my favorite band, Nickelback. I love them, and I would love to work with Chad. I'm putting it out there. So Chad, come on, I'm a big fan. But see, he is the front man.
Right.
And there is a documentary that they did, but I am a huge fan of theirs, and I don't see he's the front man, the lead guitarist, and everybody else. I mean, because they've been together for a really long time. They're cool with it. It's like, okay, let him be the whatever face. And it's the other bands that I said, Seether, Shinedown, Brett Smith from Shinedown is excellent, his voice and everything. And the other members of the band are cool with that. So sometimes it can work and it's great, but sometimes, I mean, look at the Rolling Stones. I mean, Mick Jagger is still out there doing it.
Right.
I think you should. I've seen the Rolling Stones twice in their heyday, and then I was still living in Hawaii, so that was like 20 something years ago. And I was like, I don't know if they should still be doing this. And I think they're still doing
live. Why not? It's skipping it on live.
I know, but you know what? Every time I see them, I'm like, how is Keith Richards still alive? I mean, that man. Wow. I mean, he's got longevity. I will say that.
But also thinking about bands that identify their front runners. I don't know. Are you familiar with Evanescence?
Yes, I love them.
So
Amy Lee.
Oh, that was a woman-led band, right? And she was, she was like the singer. She was kind of like the face of the band. But, it felt like it was a general consensus, right? That she had the voice, she's a girl, she leads the band. So do you think in that case, if a band starts off like that as over time they gain notoriety and everybody recognize the voice, that there would still be a need for friction, or, friction could happen another way, not necessarily somebody being a front runner?
Yes, friction can happen in other ways. It's like there's always somebody in the band that's writing the songs. And it might not be the front man. It might be somebody else. But Evanescence, by the way, I can sing Call Me When You're Sober very well. So I'm putting it out there. So yes, I love them. My Immortal, which I think is a very sad song, and I cry every time I hear it, is one of the songs that gets related to my book. So that song is on one of the playlists because it has a significant. So I can't believe you said Evanescence, because yes, I'm 100% invested in them. But I think Amy left for a while and she got married. I think that I think the whole band was at friction with each other. And I think they kind of broke up a little bit, but now they're back. And I think that's what happened to a lot of bands. Like, there are so many bands now that are from, let's say, the 2000s. There's Creed, Green Day came back. I don't know how I feel about the Linkin Park thing with the female lead. I heard one song and it's like, I guess I'm so Chester Benningfield, that it's like,
Then look past that. Chester had gift. Chester, like when you're talking about people with extraordinary gift, Chester and Freddie kind of like, go in that category. Chester is a loss. I would say is a huge loss. I think reinvention, everybody wants to reinvent and everybody wants to move on in a sense or on a memory. Maybe Chester would have wanted it, but for people who appreciated Chester in Lincoln Park, it's difficult to move past
yes,
that gaping hole he
yes,
left, right? So I think that is the struggle for everybody. Even something that the Black Eyed Peas did recently when Fergie left. Right? There's a young lady replacing Fergie that sounds just like her. She's great. She's not Fergie.
yeah.
She's great. Again, talking about a bad day. Fergie had one bad day and the whole world came down on her like nothing, right? National anthem. She was like, if this is how people really feel, then I don't want to do it anymore. And understandably. So the thing with Chester is Chester left a hole in her heart. And,
Yes.
it's difficult to want to replace or even mend that hole. And I think the band is not trying to replace him.
It's a new thing.
I know.
And
yeah,
I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't want to feel anything about it. It's not just.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not just.
And I felt that way I was a big Stone Temple Pilots fan. And then, talk about, there were two brothers and then Scott Weiland was the face of STP. He was crazy. He was this. And then, he left. Okay. And he did have problems with drugs. I went to a concert and they were supposed to come out and we waited an hour and a half. And I said, they're probably shooting him up with adrenaline to get him going. And then he went to play with Velvet Revolver with Slash and the guys from Guns N' Roses. And I saw them. It was Korn. It was Papa Roach and my daughter, she wanted to see Papa Roach. And it was called Claus Fest. So it was right around Christmas time. And the last band that was going to play was Velvet Revolver. And I was like, okay, great. Seeing the guys from Guns N' Roses is Slash and, we're going to see Scott Weiland. He was so drunk that midway through that, I said, I can't watch this. I can't watch somebody who's so talented be so messed up. And he died shortly after that. And I couldn't listen to STP because I was like, he's not here. And recently, a couple of days ago, it was the anniversary of his death and it was all over Facebook, or at least because I have all these rock feeds that come on. And another person who I could not listen to because I think his loss was so impactful and he was with several bands, but when Chris Cornell committed suicide, for me, that was very painful because he had a beautiful voice. And if you look back, he was a beautiful man. I mean, he was gorgeous and he had, a happy life. He had, loved his wife, had 2 kids. It's like, what happened? What happened? That for me was, I couldn't listen to his music for a while because it was so, I felt it like with Amy and not every artist. It was sort of like, man, like you can't replace that person ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the pop side of things, it's kind of like, everything that you're saying, it was just processing and I'm just going through the different bands and the different groups that, I've come to like and love. And, it's kind of like the same thing that happens with, even within family, the Jackson 5, right? Michael, took this thing and, did marvelously with it. Unfortunately, kind of like suffered the same thing among siblings, right? Where they're all talented in their own right, all instrument players, all beautiful voices. However, he peaked, right? As the face of the group. Unfortunately, that led to the Jackson Five, disbanding for a while, until adulthood. They decided to do something together. And, on the pop side of things, when we're talking about substance abuse, I don't know how much you know of the band Westlife.
No.
Yeah, Westlife was more, they're very popular around the world, except in the US. Westlife was the equivalent of what you had here for Backstreet Boys.
Okay, Backstreet Boys. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My daughters love the Backstreet Boys. Love.
Westlife was the equivalent of Backstreet Boys, and it's the same thing. You had the front runner or the front man, but then you had the Aaron Carter personality, the cutesy, oh my God, kind of a person, right?
Aaron Carter, yeah.
You always have those nuances. And with Westlife, I think the band performed from time to time, but everybody's older now. The one member of the group is actively missing. And that there's just a degree of, what should I call it? A degree of incompletion, I should say, when, everybody does. Yeah, you're missing a person. Oh my goodness. Look, this is why I do this. Look at you, you're talking rock with me. Did you expect that?
Rock and roll. I mean, and that's what my books, what I did was marry rock music with, I think, a very endearing love story for the two main characters. But there's other characters like her cousin. He has a story that it has to be told, right? And she loves her cousin and they're in the same band. I mean, they started it together. So as the story progresses, he has to have his story, but they're still like the cousins are still tied like this. So, and they come from a big Italian family and, he's biracial, but, his mother is taking on the Italian lifestyle, like, nothing and going to church, like, well, you got to get married and, by a priest. Otherwise it's not. So I bring those nuances into the book,
Right.
like the Catholic orthodoxy that, some people might not know. I didn't grow up heavily in that, but that was there in my family. And certain Italian traditions like 7 fishes for Christmas Eve, like that's a big deal. We used to go to my grandfather's house. So those are things I kind of put in the books because it's real. It's what the characters would be doing because, you could be famous, but you still have a private life. And I go into that is how much do you put out for the public consumption? And then where is the line where you say, okay, now you're stepping over into my space, my private life, and I'm not going to give that to you. So in the books, as they go on, those lines are always like, they're not blurred. She makes a stance, but people want to push her. And so for her, it's the constant, how much do I give them of me? My family life and my personal life.
That's really relatable because I think even more than in the rock and roll world, people can relate that, with everyday life. People go to work, mothers go to work. How much do I give and still have something left over for my family?
It is a decision. I mean, even when being a single mom and IBM was always, work-life balance and, like family life. But I took my laptop home and at 8 o'clock at night, I was looking at my mail and people were, direct messaging me. And even when I was on vacation and it was just like, what do you mean work-life balance? I'm working all the time here, but I was okay with it. It was okay. Today, if the books take off and everything else.
When the book takes off.
Thank you. When you're going to give me that influencer thing. When it does, There'll probably be a definite line because I'm ready. And I say this to everybody who I do a podcast that I will come back. And if I become super famous, I remember the people who put me on their podcast. So I will do more if you ask me to. For me, there'll be a definite, like, I know my family won't want to be there, but I will. And I'm ready to do that. And they know that. So there's going to be a definite line of, I don't mind being very public with my life, but my private life will be private because that's the way they want it.
Yes. I think that's healthy too. Talking about that line, right? That's a solid line that you don't want anybody to cross unless you give them permission to do so.
Exactly.
It's good to not have public on both ends. Your private life is public, your public life is public, and, there's no privacy, right? So when your private life is private and you respect the people that are in your private life, like your children and your grandchildren, it makes it sweeter, right? Because if you're out and about and you're not somebody that has publicized your family, and would think twice about posting, a picture that, they took, or if they found you stumble upon your presence in the vineyard, they'll think twice about posting you being with your family. This just reminds me, Michael Strahan.
Yeah, I love him. I mean, he's a New York Giant. I'm a Giant fan. Come on.
So Michael Strahan is my all-time favorite athlete, right?
Okay.
And I had jersey upon jersey, everything Michael Strahan had it. And when Michael retired from football, to be honest with you, I've not really been into the sports that much anymore, plus other things. But Michael Strahan is somebody that I would fawn over, right? To the point that my husband, Michael was just like, "Oh, your boyfriend is playing this weekend," kind of a thing, right? It got to that point.
Yeah, I got a similar story. So go ahead. I love it.
So I felt nothing about it because, again, just as a person, I admired him.
Yes.
I imagined him
He's
as a
somebody to be
player.
in my.
So I was out. New Yorkers typically don't go to Rockefeller Center around Christmas.
Yeah,
Right?
no, I will say
avoid
this.
that area.
You
because of
avoid the
tourists.
area. Yes.
Right. So I think we had some friends over or something that they wanted to go to Rockefeller Center, right? And we went to Rockefeller Center and I saw Michael. And I immediately, then I saw he was with his daughters, the twins.
Right. The twins.
And they were younger. I'm like, nope, not doing it. My husband was like, I said, I know. That's Michael. He's with his family. I'm not doing it. I'm not going up to him. I'm not taking a picture. I'm not doing it. That's his family. And he didn't expect to have a fan come up to him tonight. So even if a million people do that, I refuse to do it. Again, we were in New York for I can't remember what we were doing on 34th Street. It was right by Macy's. And again, I saw him with his family and I refused. 3 times
Next time you got to go up to one.
No, nobody's with his family. I refused to do that. I refused to do that.
I think though, just because I know what a good guy he is. God knows I'm a big Giant fan, and everything that Michael has done, he's just been phenomenal at. I think that he would be okay.
I'm sure it would be, but just out of respect.
I know, out of respect.
That is where I was coming from. Out of respect, I refuse. When I find myself in a place where Michael is there professionally without it being family time, I will let him know how much I admired him as a player, as a person, and, all of that stuff. But until then, that is that line, right?
Yeah.
I respect that line. He was out there spending time with his children, right?
Yeah.
So that was family time. And I know he's busy and, just basically watching him with one of the twins going through a very hard diagnosis and, that treatment journey. I'm like, oh my goodness, my heart completely went up to that family. But that is the thing about respecting privacy. Not everybody will respect your privacy, but I believe in doing what is like that golden rule. Do unto others as you wish to be done by. So if I want my private time and I respect other people's private time, I will feel more convicted to tell you, please, this is a private family time. Not right now.
I would have no problem saying Portland's a very foodie town. So there's all these little cafes and stuff. And if I got to the point that I'm sitting outside, having lunch, or brunch is very big in Portland, everybody brunches, and somebody came up and took a picture, I'd be like, okay, what, you got your picture now, can you please leave? And that would be, and I would be nice about it. A story about one of the things on my bucket list was to go to Lambeau Field. I wanted to go to Green Bay, and it just so happens somebody gave my husband tickets, and we had to fly from Montgomery to, it was something weird. And then we go to Atlanta because Atlanta's only 2 hours away. But anyway, Rodney Harrison, who's on NBC, Sunday Night American, and was a player, was sitting behind me. And so didn't say anything. And I just said, Rodney Harrison sitting next to us, because he's going to the same game that we're going to. Because when the New York teams tank, my next favorite team is the Kansas City Chiefs, because I love Patrick Mahomes. So it was Green Bay playing KC. And there were a lot of Kansas City people on that flight. But Rodney Harrison's going to do Sunday night. So get off the plane. Everybody's waiting for their luggage. So I'm sitting there, and all these people now are coming up to him saying, can I have a picture? Can I have a picture? And he's waiting for his luggage. He's on his phone. And I walked by and I said, I know who you are, but I'm not going to ask anything of you. Have a good game. And then I walked away, just like, I acknowledge you. I will tell you that the Jets used to have this thing, and I think they brought it back. It's called the Green Room, and it's only celebrities, and it was packed. Will Arnett was sitting in back of me. Ice-T and Coco are sitting in front of me. The guy from Jane's Addiction. I mean, Curtis Martin from the Jet. It was packed, and you eat and drink all you want, and the bathrooms were unbelievable. So I'm sitting there, and it just so happened that I went to Fort Lauderdale, and Ice-T and Coco were sitting in front of us. It was my birthday. So I said, hey, do you mind taking a picture with my wife? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And I said, we were on the same flight to Fort Lauderdale. So now he thinks I'm somebody. He doesn't know, right? Because there's only celebs in this place. And so he said, oh, yeah, Coco has got a house there, and we're talking and we're having a conversation. And every time the Jets did something good, he would be like, high five, high five, high five. And it was just like, he had no idea that I was nobody. And then the guy from Jane's Addiction was staring at me like, who is she? I think I know her from someplace. And Will Arnett was sitting back to me, and he stepped on my coat, and he said, I'm so sorry. I stepped on your coat. And I said, no, don't worry about it. It's cool. I said, we're outside. Who cares? And he's like, oh, that's really nice. I said, no, cool. Don't worry about it. So it was just like the thing about meeting celebs and whether you go up to them or not. I've met many. Some have disappointed me because we think that they're all these great people, and then you meet them and they are an asshole.
Right.
And you're like, wow, that blew my mind, right? It just blew my mind. And then there are others that are just like, and especially now that I feel like I'm in the author world, and, I believe that, this is going to be something. I don't look at those celebs or whatever. I'm their equal. And I
don't place anybody on a pedestal. I think this is where people get disappointed. I don't place anybody in a pedestal. As long as you're breathing air, blood flows through you, you use the bathroom like everybody else. You're human, right? And I'm very careful about the people that I think is a respecting for me. Everybody has had, a scandal here or two. It's part of the human experience, right? So what I look at is how people bounce back from that. What I look at is how people treat people around them, right? And that is the thing with Michael for me. There's just a handful of, celebrity or, famous people that I have this kind of like, wow, that person looks like a great person to meet someday or work with someday. And I leave it at that. I don't expect, silver and gold or even for somebody to be decent. It's just, I'm very keen on observation. As just the way that I function naturally is to read people. I never take somebody at, word of mouth or what you say to me is how we interact, right?
Yeah.
My interaction with you is going to leave me with everything that I need to know for me about you, right? So there's no amount of convincing. This is why I'm very much against the idea of trying to prove yourself to somebody, right? Because that person has already formed whatever they wanted to form about you. So you trying to prove or trying to convince or change their mind is a waste of time and energy, right? So just
Yes.
be you. If that person wants to change their mind, they will, right? If they want to stay steadfast to whatever they know about you or feel they know about you, they will. So just be you. Live in your existence and your originality, and everything else will
Be
fall into
authentic.
place.
Be
Be
authentic.
authentic. That's it. Be authentic. Because a lot of people form their opinions based on what other people say, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely.
It's never based on if I have never offended you personally, however, somebody who did something but didn't quite say their part, but tells you I'm a horrible person, if you want to run with that, yes, please believe them, run with that. Okay. But if you want to experience me yourself, then that's fine. Because people have a knack of not telling the full story. So if you want
Yeah,
to go with
no,
the
no.
half truth, that's fine. Go with the half truth. I'm completely fine with that. However, I will be authentic. I will exist in my own paradigm. And you can come into that or stay right where you are. Either way, I'm not adjusting to fit
Yeah.
you.
Don't you always feel, and you're right, because I don't take, especially, and women tend to do this to other women, and I really hate it, like tear down women. And then they come to you and they tell you all these bad things. And meanwhile, you're friends with that person and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see that. It's not my experience. So I always, and it was something that I always taught my kids, that I'm only going to believe 50% of what you're telling me, because I know the truth is the other 50%.
Absolutely.
So, and usually I get a good vibe from people. And if I get a bad vibe, then it's like, okay, there's something, I don't know what it is. I won't be rude, but I'd rather not deal with you. And I kind of had that with this book club that we had in our neighborhood. And it kind of got thrown to me because I have a huge house. There's only my husband and my dog. And so I was hosting it all the time and I didn't care because I could and it wasn't a big deal. But then the book started to come over and then there were two ladies. It was open to anybody in the neighborhood. I'd always make it, hey, come meet your neighbors, come meet, step in if you want to, maybe you want to come. It wasn't, that kind of, it was a club, but everybody was invited. And if you only wanted to come like 3 times a year, that was okay too. There were no rules. The only rules was bring a bottle of wine or bring something to eat. That was it. And it was always at my house. And I would always say, anybody want to host? I'd be happy for it. Two women came in and I didn't get a warm, fuzzy feeling. And the book club group was a very tight group of women. We would do things together that wasn't the book club. And then these two came in and I was like, I'm not 100%, but like I said, it was open to everybody. So I had to be gracious. And I really tried with one of these women to really befriend her. And it was like I was getting on hitting my head against the wall. And I was like, why am I doing this? And I know what was wrong with her. And then when I was in Brooklyn during the book festival there was a little bit of junk that went on. And I said, I didn't know that so-and-so was hosting because when you left my house, you didn't say it. And that's usually what happened. And I was left off the text chain and the woman did it on purpose. And so one of my very Southern proper, I love this woman. I said, I need to talk about this. And she said, I'll make you an omelet. Come to my house. And she's like, I'm not really going to be going that much anymore. And she said, you have too much work. She said, the books, she said, you be the Southern lady that you are. And I'm like, wait, when did I turn Southern? I'm still a New York girl. But in her book, she said, be the Southern lady and take the high road. So I did. And so I'm basically said, yeah, I'm stepping away. So you guys can figure out who's going to have it at their house because I know that they won't. And one of my friends, she was going to come over tonight, but she has a migraine. And I think they're going to try to bring me back into it. And I was so okay with stepping away because I did not want to be in a room with two people who didn't like me and
Yes.
I didn't like.
Step away from it. I know
I
your
stepped away.
your heart is speaking right now because your friends are saying, no, you've always done this. We miss it. Step away
Yeah,
from it.
I am. I'm totally.
Nothing good is going to come out of you re-injecting yourself. And given that you're now Southern, you're going to be expected.
I'm not. I'm still New York. I'm still New York.
She dumped your Southern lady to take the high road. Then you're going to be expected to invite two people that their energies are off. I mean, step away from hosting. If you were ever invited to go to anybody's house, then you go. This is the one thing about friendship that in my older years in life, I've applied it and I'm not apologetic about it at all. And a group of friends taught me this and it showed me that I wasn't wrong. If I am hosting something, I've been known to host something, right? And then out of the blue, for whatever reason, competition, showing off, whatever it was, I don't care. Somebody decides to replicate that exact same thing at the same time, day, whatever that I'm known to do that, I will not object to it. However, I will not attend. Okay? So
Yes.
if everybody is used to coming to mine at a certain time or whatever the case, if you want to show your support to come to my house, fine, right? Especially if I was left off a good time. There's something that I apply to my life. If you don't celebrate me out in the open, don't celebrate me in secret.
Yeah. That's
At a point
that's
where you were left off that text message, who spoke up? Who said, okay, guys, this doesn't feel right. I'm not coming, right? How many people did that? Okay.
two of my friends did.
Okay. And the two people that did that, the two people can have a private book club with you. And those should be the only two people you allow in your house. Okay?
Yeah. There are two other ladies that are kind of, like they're stuck. One is my next door
There's no
neighbor.
middle. That's stop. There's no middle. It's either here or here. We're not kids anymore.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
If you don't stand for something, you're going to fall for something. You have to decide, was this right? Yes or no? If it was right, then go on. There's no stuck in the middle. If you felt this was wrong, there was no need for you to attend that. Understanding that I was left off, understanding that I did this for a number of times.
5.5 years. I did it for.
Exactly. I'm saying it's black and white. There's no middle here.
Yeah, you're right.
There's
You're
no
right.
middle. You made your
You're right.
decision. I respect your decision. You also have to respect my decision now. I love you, but I don't have to love you in that extent. Anybody who will comfortably sit there in any place while somebody breaks you down, and then you come and tell me, by the way, she was saying this and then she said this and then she said this. My question to you is thank you. But what did you offer the conversation for this person to feel comfortable enough to say these things in your presence, knowing that we're friends? What did you
Yeah.
offer the conversation?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a really good
Okay.
point.
So you gave something. You gave something to that conversation. There is no way somebody is going to just come and glue at the mouth without feeling comfortable with you, knowing we're friends, right? So what did you offer that conversation? What did you say? What did you agree to? How did that conversation start? What was the middle? What was the ending? Because nobody who knows we're friends and that you value me will come to you and disseminate my name in a way that nobody would even touch it without you encouraging it, making that person comfortable enough to say the things that they say. So
That's true.
it calls your friendship into question because thank you for telling me. Okay, so and I'm one person that please, if you don't know me, hello everybody. If you come to me about anything that somebody said, please understand that I will confront the person most likely in front of you because I want to know if it was not warranted while we're here. So
I love the fact that you said you confront. I've been
I do.
called the queen of confrontation
No,
because
I will confront you because if it was warranted, it's going to yield one of two results. Okay? If it was warranted and I was wrong, I will apologize.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay? Again, nobody's perfect. I may have made a mistake without really thinking twice about it. However, if it wasn't warranted, the person that you confided in and told the person not to trust me, to watch me, and all this extra stuff people say, will definitely find out the truth. But please understand that both of you are on a list that is not going to be close to me. Because again, nobody starts a conversation without feeling comfortable enough to start a conversation. Nobody's going to leave you off a group chat to an event that you've hosted for 2+ years without somebody making them feel comfortable enough to do that. All right? And there is no in between. There's right, there's wrong. Just like the other two friends made a decision not to go, caught in the middle people should have made a decision not to go. I love you, we're friends. However, I feel this is wrong because this person has hosted this for the longest time. If you actually have a problem with this person, how about you talk about it and then, we can see, we can attack. But right now, it feels weird. The same way that they're telling you they're stuck in the middle, they're not stuck in the middle. They're not stuck in the middle. There is no middle here. They want you to let down your guard. For you to continue leading with that big old heart of yours, Beth. No, stop it. Stop
You sound
it.
like my sister-in-law right now. I got to tell you, you sound just like my sister-in-law, which I love her. I do. So got this text from, one of I know they're my friends and they're not strong enough like the other two ladies are. But so she was like, I didn't see the text till after my workout and we were going to have a coffee time. And I said, why don't you come over like Monday night and, we'll have wine with cheese and crackers, la, 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 la. And she texted me. And so I said to my husband, I have a feeling I know what this is. I have a feeling because nobody wants to host and they're going to try to sucker me back in. And I said, it's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not. I do my best work on my books at night because it's my time. And, I'm still, cleaning the house, making dinner. All those things still have to happen while I'm working. And it's okay. It's what it is. And maybe I'll get to a point where, I free myself of some of that. But
Beth, I feel the heaviness in your voice, in you even running through this right now, because these are women that you consider friends, okay? I feel that heaviness. I feel that loss. However, when the universe closes a door, respect it.
you're right.
Respect it. When you force open that door, you're going to be hurt and you only have yourself to blame. Okay.
You're right. The universe does do that.
This is a universe shutting a door. Nailing is shot with 4x4s and everything. Here you go trying to take the nails off. Right? Stop it. Right?
Can I just say, I love this conversation that we're having. It's like we're talking about it.
Okay? The universe wanted you to see the caliber of people that you have in your life. Okay?
Yeah, that's true.
When we talk about friends, okay, everybody thinks friends are supposed to be here. No, there are different relationships that you have with different friends. We can have a
Absolutely.
group of 10 people and we're all friends. However, when I'm in a bind, I know who I can call that will be there. And I know who I'll call that will make excuses, right?
Yeah,
But we're all
exactly.
friends, right? So that varying degree of friendship, all
Mhm.
friendship do not have to mirror one another. The people that will have your back and not fear being ostracized, they don't fear being condemned, they don't fear being unfriended, right? Are the people that stood up on principles and said, no, this is wrong. I'm not going. I'm not going either, right? The people that are now trying to rope you back into these things are the people that were caught in the middle. Do you see how you benefit them? They're only caught in the middle because there's nobody else and they know they benefited from you hosting. It wasn't about benefiting from you as a person, as a friend, standing up for you. The universe is showing you things that there's no need to struggle with it. You know, I think, was it Oprah Winfrey or Maya Angelou who said when somebody shows you who they are the first time, believe them. Something played out. You had no hand in it.
That sounds like a Maya
It's
Angelou.
Maya, absolutely Maya, because I think Oprah repeated it when they were kind of like in an interview, right? You had no dealings with, something being set up in your absence. You did not arrange for that to happen. It happened. Friends called you, true friends called you and told you, this is wrong. Take the high road, say nothing, don't host anymore. We're not going. So if you're really feeling for that hosting, have these two friends come over. Make new friends, Beth.
I said we could do a wine every month thing. But, it's funny when you said the universe closes the door.
Yes.
Before all of that, I was I was an admin on a Nickelback fan page. And the person who runs it, owns it, whatever you want to call, her and I became very good friends. But we're friends on the internet, right? And I would talk to her every day and we would talk about things. And it was the kind of thing like I was going to call her and then all of a sudden she would call me. So there was like this connection. And I kept saying to her, because she said she had some in with the band. And I said, well, I really would love to talk to Chad about my songs, And so there was a lot of festivals last year, and I was trying to actually get a booth at one of those festivals, which my husband, how your husband said, Michael Strahan, my husband is like, how's your boyfriend today? And he'll say, how's Chad doing? And I'm like, what? Like, how does he even know that? I mean, I've never expressed anything to him about it. So I said, well, if you know the band, why can't you get us backstage passes? I mean, it costs the band nothing to give you a backstage pass. And she never could do it. And so, like, that was a red flag, but I didn't catch the red flag, right? And then I think she was getting bounced off of Facebook a lot. So she was changing her name. And as an admin, I would let her back in to the group. One day, out of the blue, this woman went on, and we have another friend who I am friends with. She has helped me in book festivals on her dime. She flew to the location, paid for her hotel room just to be with me, to support me. That's the person I'm going to see in Texas. But this person gave my friend from Texas unbelievable crap. And she would call me and she would say, I'm not going to get involved. You have a relationship with this person. And she didn't talk crap yet. So I get out of the shower and I'm getting pummeled with these texts. And it was somebody who I think had a mental detachment, because what she was saying in these texts and she's like, I hope your books fail. Your books are terrible. Meanwhile, she loved them, and you're never going to meet Chad. So, and I was like, well, you don't even have the pull. So what are you talking about? And she just went on. And she said, you need to go to a mental hospital. And I said, honey, and then I got to the point where it's like, why am I continuing this?
Exactly.
why am I continuing this? And I said, I'm sorry you're off your meds, but I'm done. And I left her phone number just in case, but I blocked her on all social media and stuff. And so I called our friend in Texas and I told her what happened. And she said, that's exactly what happened to me. That's what she did. And she said, she's living a life behind a computer screen and she's not what she portrays herself to be. And I said, it took me literally 12 hours. And I said, like you said, the universe closed the door. Done. I'm done with her. And then the stuff at the book club happened. And I said, done. And then I thought to myself, as you said, there's a reason why I'm ejecting these people in my life.
Yes.
There's a reason for it.
Distractions. You need to focus on your book, man.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm doing good. I just need to get it out there.
That's why the distraction. You would have been running around trying to host, making sure everything is all set. Everybody comes in. You make sure everybody's pillow is nice and fluffed and they're comfortable. And,
And I would cook crazy for
that's
them.
what I'm saying. You're an Italian woman, so I understand.
I was making meatballs, chicken parm.
So I know what I'm saying, right? Make sure every pillow is fluffed just right for everybody. Make sure everybody's comfortable, everybody's well fed. They leave, you get to washing and cleaning. And,
exactly.
now, save that time for two friends. You have to worry about 2 wine glasses, 2 plates, a nice pot of sauce and meatballs, whatever else you want to do.
They don't even want that. They said, we're happy with cheese and crackers.
That's what I'm saying. Look at that. You're saving time, right? You're saving time. You're meeting people that they have your back. It is too exhausting to be in a friendship with somebody that you're not unsure of.
Yeah, it's sort of like, and I definitely agree with that. And it's also like when people talk about whether it's their marriage or relationship, it's too much. If the relationship is a quote job, then it's not worth having.
Absolutely not.
Relationship should not be a job.
If you cannot free fall, it is not the right relationship. It doesn't matter if that is a boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage, job, whatever it is, acquaintances. If it does not feel like you can be yourself and know that this person will stand up for you, it is so not worth it. That is too much mental gymnastics.
Yes.
I don't do mental gymnastics. It's draining. It saps creativity. It saps energy. So I would rather be alone. I'd rather be in my own world than be in a company of people that I do not have my full trust in.
Well, I've created my own world with the book. So
absolutely. You stay in that world. We love you in that world.
Right. When I'm doing it, I'm in it.
Yes.
And there are times when I'll write a line that Gina says and I will read it out loud to myself. And if I think for any reason it's the way I'm saying it, and I go, no. She wouldn't say it like that. She would say it like this. Then, delete and then type in how I would say it if I was in that position. So the books are important and friends have supported me. I've said exactly this to everybody, whether it was my mother, my brother, or my daughter's husband. I said, if you're not with me, then I'm going to ride alone. It's okay. You don't have to be with me.
That's right.
I'm going to ride this by myself.
That's right.
I get kind of weird looks, but
the weird looks is a combination of things. The weird looks, respect, and you're not being afraid of being alone, because that is the one thing that really does affect us as human beings, right? And once I started tuning inward and paying attention to my, spirituality and aligning myself more, I was not afraid of being alone in my head, right? We are such communal creatures that we crave to always be in a huddle, right? A huddle is beautiful. A community is beautiful. A village is beautiful. But you have to be okay with in here, going in at it alone, so that you learn to value the people who are willing to come on that journey with you, and learn to cut off the people who are not willing to support that journey in
Like,
any capacity, right? I know what this journey entails. I know where this journey is going, right? And this is where this journey is going. It's either you're on or you're off,
yep.
right? I love you, but it's either you're on or you're off. And in having those conversations, those genuine, honest conversations, everybody that is there and willing to love you, they do understand that, oh, this is serious. Okay. So let's not get in her way, right? That is where you cultivate that respect, right? You don't say it in a way that, you know what, fall off the bridge, jump off a cliff. Not at all. I love you, but don't be stressful. If you're going to be stressful, please, I don't need you on this journey, right? And that is as simple as and respectful as you can put it. Because again, we suffer in silence because of being polite. How many women stay in abusive relationship? How many men stay in abusive relationship? How many of us stay in very toxic family dynamic just because we have family? Oh, does family tolerates everything? Well, family this and family that. No, stop. No.
Yeah.
You have to be able to draw your own line. And if somebody loves and respects you, they have to also see reason, right? They have to
I
be able
know.
to see reason. So the weird looks are not completely weird, like, okay, she's gone off the rails. She's off her bunk. It's kind of like, oh, okay, she's serious about this. So let me know what part I played, right? And be careful about people you interact with on the internet, because there are a lot of mental health patients out there that do not have the guardrails of family members or even services to keep them on track. So people catfish all the time. They profess to be people that they're not. They have ideas of grandiosity, making themselves important, and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, you're so true, because I mean, I thought of this person as a friend, and then I realized, so my friend in Texas actually went to her house, and she was having some heart issues. So she drove to where she lived, which was a drive, and she never told me anything until I told her that, she went psychotic on me. And she explained her appearance to me, which was I was shocked, how she lived. And I was like, she really does not portray herself that way. And she said, when you sit behind a computer and, these fan pages, these people, if they think you have an in with them, there's the fangirls that are like, oh my God, I love, 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 this, I love this. Oh my God, he's my husband, and it's sort of like, oh, okay, that's a little much. And so she cultivated some of these people, and, they think she's a god, and I know better. And you know what? She banned me from the page. So I went to other pages, and they said, weren't you her best friend? And I said, yeah, I was, until she went crazy on me. And two people that had two different pages said, she did the same thing to me. She did the same thing to me. And it's like, okay, well, this is obviously a person who has some issues that makes friends. And I've seen this in another friend I had, where they make these friendships or have these friendships, and then the littlest thing can,
but she doesn't have anything else going on.
I know that's
Okay.
so true.
So yeah, she's gonna hang out. It's like, the analogy that I can think about here is like somebody drowning. If a person is drowning and you throw a buoy into, the water, or anything comes by that remotely looks like a stable item, they're going to hang on to it, right? That's why they tell you, if you're jumping into rescue a drowning person, never go in front, always go behind, because they're going to grab you and pull you down, right? So have the upper hand in grabbing them. So like the closest thing, the semblance of a friendship, she's going to hang on to it for dear life, right? So at the very notion of that revealing, the slightest moment you lift a mirror to show her reality, she's going to go off on you, just like she's done to everybody else. Again, the internet is a scary place. It's a wonderful place, but it's also a scary place. It's a scary place that people can profess to be what they're not, hide behind a keyboard.
We know
Yeah.
that that's out there. So now,
Be careful. Just because
yeah,
you're a
I'm
sweetheart.
careful.
You're a
Yeah.
sweetheart. And people can see that. Something that was said recently in the last year that changed my whole being is that the empath and the givers have to realize that in this world, they're takers and energy drainers. So it's the yin and yang of things, right? There has to be a balance. So as you're a giver, there's a taker. So you have to identify them. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to pour from your excess, right? So it's the yin and yang of things. So just, be on the lookout out there in the internet streets. So we've been talking for a while, and we kind of felt this was going to happen.
We
But
did.
this is
We
great.
did. No,
This is great.
we have to do it again.
We have
The
to. We have to. So one thing I asked my guest, Beth, before I let you go. So where can we find your book, and where can, an influencer who's listening to this, who wants to work with you, can reach you? And also, before you go, I like to ask for golden nuggets, like little golden nuggets from my guest, for any self-publisher, anybody who's looking to reinvent their lives and start over. What are the golden nuggets you can live for, those set of people? But also, please tell us where we can find your book, purchase the book, and for any influencer to reach out to you who's listening to us.
Yes. Influence.
Yeah.
My books are on Amazon, and it's Perfection Saga is the series of books, but each book has a different name. And Playing Hard is the first one. Playing High is the second one. They're on Amazon, paperback, Kindle. I am going to be doing a promotion around Valentine's Day. So that's for the Kindle people. And if you go into a bookstore and you go to the information desk, they can order my book because I'm worldwide distribution. Or you could go to my website, which is perfectionsaga.com, and it will lead you. And every podcast, just so you know, every podcast I do is put on my website. This way, I always give kudos to the people who are interviewing me, or I don't think this just two gals who believe in the universal language.
Yeah.
Just jive together automatically. And that happens in life. But yeah, Amazon, and you can reach me, perfectionsaga.com. There's ways of getting in touch with me, and influencers I am on. And to everybody else, I am on all social media. I am on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, and there's even a new thing called Lemon 8. I don't know what that is yet. Somebody invited me that was on Instagram, or no, it was X, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm on everything. You can find me there by my name, and my books are plastered all over the place. So if you like music and you like a sexy romance story, my books are it. They're going to leave you in a cliffhanger when wanting the next book. So book 3 is going to be coming out February, March, probably more March, and it's going to be called Playing Rough. Yeah, I know all the names sound like they have a sexual component, but it isn't at all that.
Hard, high, and rough. Okay.
Yeah, it could sound like it's that, but no, it is.
It's giving rock and roll. It's giving rock and roll to me. That's what I'm
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you get it then. You get it. So yes. So please, and if there's influencers out there, I want to talk to you, and let's do a deal.
Right.
Find me.
Right.
So now your gold nuggets, let's go. Let's do it.
So let them know. What is your golden nuggets to them? What can you tell an aspiring self-publisher who may be self-doubting, or somebody who's raised their children and they want to reinvent themselves?
Okay. Well, with the self-publishing, I would say like I said, there are a lot of bad people out there. You need to find a good one. Go to the Self Alliance. The Alliance of Self Publishers.
So,
And everybody who is good has a green light. And if somebody is interested, I am happy to give them the name of the woman who I work with. And privately, I will give them her name, and she would be happy to work with them. Also, expect to spend a lot of money. I think my first book was like 15K to do everything the professional way. Sometimes people want to take shortcuts, but if you want to be taken seriously, do it the right way, because doing it the right way means people are going to take you serious. Now, as far as raising 3 children and reinventing self, I don't think I really reinvented myself. I think that this was the person I always should have been. I feel that I should have, and I had this conversation with another podcast, and it was like, I knew when I was a little girl, and I think you feel the same way when I say this, that when I was a little girl, I knew that I was supposed to be doing something big, something that people would notice, that I would be something. Was it a singer? Was it an actress? Was it an author? I don't know, but I was supposed to do something. And I knew that from a very early age, and I felt it. And I always let life take that desire of mine away. And then I got to a place in my life where the book ran through me, and I just said, you know what? It's my time now. It's for me to not necessarily reinvent, but bring out the person that was always there. And it's taking a big step. Like, I had a divorce that was terrible. And once you go down that road and say, I don't want to be in this marriage anymore, you're taking a big step. And becoming the person that you want to be or should be is that big step also, because things are going to change in your life. And embrace it, because it's who you always should have been. And for people who don't have that and want to be something, do it. Do it. Take the leap. If you don't take the leap, you'll never know if you could do it. And you could fail, but at least you
that's part
tried.
of the process. That is
Right.
part of your process. That's where you
Right.
learn, right?
But as far as self-doubt, every now, and I actually had this conversation with myself this morning while I was doing my manifesting. A little self-doubt came into my head, and I said, no, I have the internal dialogue. I
Yeah.
said, no, do not self-doubt. You are supposed to be doing exactly what you're doing, and you are manifesting the things that you want to manifest. And that is getting somebody significant to help with my songs, getting all the books out and seeing what happens with that. And I don't have self-doubt. I just need to keep pushing forward. And, I'm not going to let anything deter me. I'm not. And so that's my advice to, women, and men. If you have this desire, you need to go get it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how old you are.
That's right.
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter. Go get it. And if you feel like, oh, you're not progressing as fast as you thought you were going to, you are progressing. You're moving, right? You are moving. May not be at the speed or velocity that you would like, but you are moving. Keep at it.
Yes.
It takes one break, one lucky gaze, your direction.
You hit it on. That's what I say. I said, I just need one person.
That's it. Put everything in place so when that opportunity strikes, you're ready to go. You're good to go. So this was such a great conversation, Beth. Let's do this again.
I think we both have the same energy, and that's very hard to always find. I don't know if you've had that with other guests where it's like, okay,
It's very rare because, again, talking about being authentic, I am myself, right? I lead with my energy, and some people lean into it. Some people stay in theirs, wherever a guest is. For context, for everybody listening, We have been talking for 3 hours, 25 minutes. I've not had that yet. Okay. I've gone an hour 30. I've gone, but 3 hours, 25 minutes at this time. And the conversation just leads on. This is why I do this. Because again, look at her and look at me. Physically, we're very different. You talk about age, I'm young enough to be her daughter. I'm a millennial. She has millennials. You never know what you have in common with somebody until you converse. I'm very atypical. I love rock and roll. I love country music. I am very eclectic when it comes to music. I love doo-wop. I have a whole collection of Time Life, collection
Exactly.
of...
Yes.
Exactly. I have that, right? I know songs. I shock people, right? But then again, these are things that are not the first thing you have in a conversation with somebody until you actually converse with a person. We started out with Beth's book and, her love of music was very apparent. And, as we went into things, we bounced things off of each other. I mentioned Evanescence. She was shocked I did. If somebody told her before she got on this call, hey, she might know a thing or two. I don't know, but here we are. So again, there's more that connects us than divides us. There's more that we share in common that we can learn from one another, right? I'm sitting here talking to you about letting a door close, practically advising you, supporting your decision, letting you know you're not crazy to have removed yourself from a situation, just in case you were doubting it. Right? And, some people say, well, I'm older than you. You can't advise me on anything. No. You knew that. You even brought in another scenario that happened that, okay, there's this correlation. So again, it takes a conversation. So I really do appreciate you being authentically you and giving that space for me to be authentically myself and for us to see the commonality that, we share. This was my last interview for the day. You know what I was going to do after our interview? Because I usually budget an hour, pay bills. But you know what? The bills will be paid. We had this.
I was going to edit book 4, which I will do.
We had this conversation. I spend the time, I relax, I let everything else just take care of itself around me. And I relax for this conversation. I am very grateful for you. I'm grateful for the universe that brought us in alignment. I'm grateful for the work that you're putting out there in the world. I'm grateful for your message. I'm grateful to be part of this journey with you. I'm grateful that you're part of my journey as well.
Yes.
So,
and I will come back. You can have so much in common with somebody, and it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter. Like you said, it looks this, that. You take people for their authentic selves. And that's the beauty that in the world that I want to live in is that, like minds stick with each other.
Yeah. That just appreciate people for who they are. Not the casing, because this is a casing. And
Yes.
some people sometimes don't look past the casing and they lose out on having very valuable conversation or connection with people. So I thank you for making the time for us to talk, Beth. It was great.
Thank you. And we'll do it again.
Yes, we'll do it again. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. This is going to be a multi-part series because this is too juicy to all go in one episode. So thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Be great humans, please. All right? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Avik Beck's podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.